Chapter 13, Section 2. With the new factory system in the North, most production was moved from individuals to specialized workers under one roof producing goods. They produced textiles, shoes, watches, guns, sewing machines, and agricultural machinery. Working conditions in northern factories were not very good. The people worked long hours in hot, closed-in spaces. There was dangerous machinery, and there were not really safety measures taken. Many children worked in the factories, and the owners were more concerned about how much money they were going to make than the safety of their workers, because workers were replaceable. As a result of the difficult conditions in the factories, workers began to organize in order to improve how things were happening. Trade unions are organizations of workers within the same trade or skill. And many trade unions organize to encourage strikes where people actually do not come to work. And as a result, the factory can no longer make that profit. You're refusing to work in order to put pressure on employers. Strikes were illegal in the early 1800s, and workers could have had legal issues or be fired from their jobs as a result. But Massachusetts courts held in 1842 that workers have the right to strike, but it would be years before other workers received other rights. The whole idea here, though, is that if we stop working, then people will stop taking advantage, and that was really the mindset with the trade unions. Although slavery had disappeared in the North by the 1830s, conditions for African American workers were not much better than they had been under slavery, except for it could be called free. There was still a great deal of prejudice, which is unfair opinion not based on facts, or and also discrimination, where a particular group, in this case African Americans, are treated differently because of their race. Discrimination still exists today in areas of gender equality, and consideration of race, immigration status, these types of things. People are frequently discriminated against. African Americans rarely had voting rights, and some states have laws that actually prohibit African Americans from voting. There was still segregation in schools and public facilities, something that we saw when we watched the Children's March, where you have the two different water fountains and those types of things. This was not only a Southern issue, this was a Northern issue as well, particularly before the Civil War and immediately thereafter. There were some African Americans that were successful in business, mostly selling to the African American community, whatever their goods were, but most African Americans in the North are extremely poor. And although they're not enslaved, again, the conditions are not great, and they are not living a life of freedom and equality once they get to the North. Women were a major part in helping for the rise of the factory system. They received less pay for the same or more work and were almost an attractive hire to many of the businesses. Women were also not allowed in the unions. Although the unions were, put in place to represent the needs of the workers, many male unions exclude women. And women like Sarah Bagley began to organize their own unions. They wanted to only have to work 10 hours. They wanted, which today is considered at least 2 hours of overtime in most jobs. Their petition was denied because the legislature was not interested in any petition made by women. So although they tried to get help, because it was a petition by women, they're unable to. And although most of their efforts fail, they paved the way for future movements. There was also a change in the immigration patterns of people that came to this country. The Irish potato famine had started. Basically, a famine is an extreme shortage of food. In Ireland's case, there was a devastating blight or disease that basically attacked and killed the potato crop, which was a staple of their diets. And starvation struck the country, and millions of people died. So the choice was to leave Ireland and look for other opportunity in the United States. But most of the Irish were poor. They couldn't afford land in the United States. So immigrants took on low-paying factory jobs, often for less than Americans had been making. And manual labor, such as railroads, provided employment, as well as becoming servants, the women who became servants and factory workers. And it was in these roles that the Irish became a major fundamental part of the northern workforce. but don't think that they were actually welcome. I mean, just like the questions that arise regarding immigration today, there were many people that wanted to stop the rush of Irish into the country because the fear that they were taking their job and really changing the structure of the country. The Germans were another group of immigrants that came to the United States during this time. There had been a democratic revolution in Germany in 1848 that failed, and many Germans decided to leave Germany and come to the United States for additional opportunity. Most of these Germans came with some money to buy farms and open their own businesses. And they pretty much created their own communities and self-help organizations to help immigrants from Germany get settled, and they prospered. They were primarily located in New York and Pennsylvania, as well as going out to the Midwest and Western territories. They brought their own cultural practices and their language to their communities, created German language magazines and newspapers, established music societies based on German music, and really had their own culture. Another major change that comes with these new immigration patterns is the strengthening of the Catholic Church. Most of the Irish and about half of the German population in America were Catholic. So the church provided a center for immigrant communities, basically someplace that you can go as a safe haven, someplace that you can go to just be around people with the same beliefs, making that transition a little bit easier. Now, as I stated before, there were a lot of people that did not want immigration. They were people called nativists who were opposed to immigration and felt that immigration threatened the future of Native American-born citizens. They believed that immigrants were taking jobs from real Americans, which you have to instantly understand the irony of that. Who were the Native Americans? They certainly weren't the white people making the decisions in the United States. And for these generation, a couple generation removed from their immigration into this country, for them to turn away other immigrants has a bit of hypocrisy to it. And I'm sure the true Native Americans saw the definite trouble in this. But nevertheless, there were enough of these natives to come together and form their own political party called the Know Nothing Party. And they basically wanted to have stricter citizenship laws. They wanted to extend the waiting period from 5 years to 21 years and ban foreign-born citizens from holding office. The party split into the northern branch and the southern branch over the question of slavery. And, later on you'll see this happen with the rest of the nation. So they create this new party, and perhaps they could have had some semblance of strength, but the northern Know Nothing Party didn't want slavery, and the southern Know Nothing Party did. And this was going to divide the party enough to really be its ultimate downfall.